welcome you back. This is the Wednesday, kind of the hump day, thump day edition of Interesting Ideas. My name is Stan Houston, and we're so grateful that you take these 12, 15, maybe 20 minutes, that's about the max we ever do, to perhaps learn something new that could be useful to you in your life and in your business. As we say, we're here to help you, hopefully you, to, have a little more influence in your life because you have greater insight, and because of that, you have impact. And in effect, you have good and true income. We want that to happen for you and with you, and help you to share that good stuff with others. Because if you want to get good stuff, you have to learn how to share that good stuff. So we thank you for being a part of our program today. Now, yes, the title is just exactly that. My wife's name, my long, adored, beautiful wife, her name is Karen. And that's a problem, isn't it? Well, what are we going to do about that? Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. And then I'm going to segue that story into very simply this truth claim. Storytelling is the only effective means of communication. I'll say it again. Storytelling is the only effective means of communication. That's the deal for today. The program begins right now. Well, as I grew up and went through my life and education, I found that even though I thought I would like to be an engineer, an electrical engineer, because I loved to work with the radios, I found out that when it came to math, that I could do it, but I didn't really like it. And so I understood that perhaps dealing with that kind of stuff wasn't for me. And so I tended to have my interest in more other things. I found that I particularly liked to hear stories about the past. I liked history, but I didn't like the history that was usually taught. I liked the history which was story taught. And that's what I kind of grew up with. And I read those kind of books. And when I went to college, I didn't know quite what to do, so I majored in history, and that led me, well, what do you do with a history major? I decided, well, maybe I'll be a teacher. And because I'd finally outgrown some of my shyness, I was able to do that. And we did it, I believe, quite well for a number of years. So that's a little bit of my story about why storytelling is the only effective means of communication. Now, let me show you this particular deal. Hey, my wife's name is Karen. That's right. So what do we do? Well, here is the story. She actually was very upset about that. Well, Karen, everyone's making fun of Karens. And she actually thought that, she said, Stan, maybe I should just change my name, or maybe I should go by my middle name, which is Elizabeth. I could perhaps do that. And then I said, well, maybe you should just, for the rest of your life, take a stage name. Just make a name up that you want and go by it and say, this is my name. And since we were moving from Arizona to Carolina, and we didn't know a lot of people here, we could just say, that's her name, and they wouldn't know any different or any better. So that's the story. Now, here's what happened. What we decided, and she did it very simply. When she gave her name, and obviously she had to give her name a lot whenever we went to a new place, particularly getting our hospital arrangements and our medical arrangements and our other kind of things. We had to fill in a variety of forms. And she simply said this, my name is Karen, but I'm a nice Karen. And everybody smiled. She said, I really am. I'll be very nice. And as a result of that, a conversation came about. And after a while, all of the people she was filling out forms for, whether it be a doctor or insurance or whatever it might be, she had very effectively connected with them because she took something that could be a negative, and by turning it into her story, she flipped the whole fact about Karens around. So again, just think about that. Now, let me fly into my story. As a teacher, I was really good at telling stories. I just got into that. It made history so much more interesting. So that's usually what I try to do rather than talk about, the facts and the battles and the figures. Whenever I could make it into a story, that's what I would do. And it went fairly well for me. And so for a number of years, I have simply said this. Storytelling is probably one of the more effective ways to communicate. I then said, storytelling is really an effective way to communicate. It's really one of the best ways to communicate. And now I say this, storytelling is the only effective means of communication. Now, what I mean by that is, for instance, fine, you've got instructions, you've got directions, you've got facts and figures and things that are information. Certainly, that doesn't have to be put into a story form, but please keep in mind, if you want to affect people, if you want them to remember something, if you want them to do something, if you want your communication to be more than information, if you truly want it to affect things, make it memorable. Make it so that people may smile or perhaps even wonder or have mystery or ask questions. I stand by it and will teach you, if you wish, how to turn your whole sales and marketing force into storytellers. And that's one of the best ways to do any kind of effective communication. And now you have to learn how to do that. And of course, we can tell you more about how to do that in the kind of work we could do together. And of course, if you're thinking about that, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. That's the deal. Now, I'm going to try and again, redo it or reinforce my point, which is oftentimes what you need to do because right now you're not sure. But let me make it a little more credible. One of the great lines that changed everything about me in terms of my broadcasting, particularly when we were doing church and mission broadcasting, was a book by a woman named Rebecca Pippert. And she was a journalist and a writer, and she was talking about how you communicate something that's important. And here's what she said. The master teacher came into the world, and that's Jesus of Nazareth, and he told stories, and he asked questions. So what do? We preach sermons, and we give answers. We talk to people. Remember, it's the truth told from yesterday. We preach sermons and we give answers. Where the master teacher told stories and then asked questions. And remember, we talked about a truth discovered is best of all. And there are all kinds of ways where I can demonstrate to you that the truth discovered usually takes place through a significant experience, and it also takes place when the power of the story helps them get it on their own. Oh, sure. I guess I never saw it that way before. So that's where we're going to go. This is 10 minutes into the program, and we've got just a few more minutes to go, maybe about 5 or 6 or 7, but I think you'll find them helpful. But remember, you'll learn more here by accident than most places by design. And right now, today, on this Wednesday, we're going to try and help you turn your whole life and business around, because you're going to make a resolution from now on. In my life and business, I'm going to get really good at telling stories and asking questions. Let that sit on your head for a while, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and here's a little bit of my story. Based on all that I have learned, and I've been around a long time, both as a broadcaster, as a teacher, and a business performance coach for well over a quarter century, broadcasting for 40-some years, I can help you particularly find a way to reach your audience. And that's what you have to do. You have to view, you don't have prospects, you don't have customers, you don't have clients, you have an audience. And you have to learn how to reach them and engage them and connect with them. And then you have to make them an offer. And they have to be so absorbed and engaged and discovering the value and the truth that they do the deal. That's the deal. Do the deal. Now, let me tell you a few things why. First of all, nobody can argue with your story. Now, I guarantee you they can argue with your facts as you present them. Here are the features and benefits. These are the facts. They can argue with that. This is my opinion. They can argue with that. This is what I believe. Well, I guess they can even argue with your beliefs, but you see, you didn't say it is true for you. You said, this is my beliefs, and that's part of your story. When you tell your story, nobody can argue with it. They can be moved by it. They can perhaps be put off by it. I just recently read a story of a guy who went through hell. And he describes his entire life of miserable addiction and what it did to him. And then he describes how he came out of it. Now, that's his story. Perhaps you may not like what he did or how he did it or how he recovered, but it's his story. And you can't argue with it, because all he's claiming is, this is what happened to me, and this has been my experience. Nobody can argue with your story. Because of that, people are going to be more inclined to, hey, as one man said to me one time, Stan, you know what? I don't think anyone in business has ever listened to me and my story like you. You've been here sitting with me for over 2 hours, and all I did was talk and tell you my story, and you listened to me. And then he said, well, Stan, I need to hear your story. And I said, well, that's good, because, you know, what really makes life work and what makes business work is when your story and my story perhaps meet. Years ago, when I was teaching insurance guys how to do sales, their companies had always told them to find the facts. You know, find the facts, and then get a fact finder, and then come back with all the facts and tell the people what to do. They still do it. They still teach people that way. It's stupid. As I would say, don't find the facts, find the stories. Let people tell you their story. And then see if you can discover in their story what's important to them, what they care about, what life is all about, what perhaps are some of the solutions they're seeking or the aspirations they have. Don't find the facts. Find the stories. In fact, when I meet people today, I don't ask the two stupid questions. You know what the two stupid questions are? Where are you from? Second stupid question is, well, what do you do? Well, that's a couple pieces of information, and it may help. If supposedly I discover there was a guy wearing in the elevator a Minnesota Vikings shirt, and I just had pleasant conversation. How are you? I said, are you from Minnesota? And he says, no, not from Minnesota. For just some reason, I liked the Vikings. Now, if I was actually, and we literally were in the elevator, then I would say this. Well, how did someone become a Minnesota Vikings fan when you weren't in Minnesota? And then he would start to tell me his story. Don't find the facts, find the stories. Let me tell you, this is true very much of people today. They would love it when someone listens to them. I tell everybody, remember that everybody is wearing a sign that says, please tell me I am important. And so what do most salespeople do? They spend their whole time pitching them. The whole frickin' conversation is about them and their company and what they can do. And so, in effect, you're saying, this conversation is all about me so I can get you to give money to me. That's what you're doing when you do it by the traditional selling. And you know what? Most people don't want to give you their money. They would prefer to keep it. That's right. Do you understand that? So, what are you going to do to help them discover the truth about themselves and about you, that they do something unnatural, and that is buy you, hire you, pay you, buy something from you? How do you do that? Well, let me just tell you. Richard Branson and the incredible entrepreneur, Virgin Companies. By the way, and this is vital, he never wants to read anything you send him because it turns out that he is an extreme dyslexic. He has a very hard time reading. And here's what he says. If you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, if you want to succeed as someone who is a creator of new things and new ideas, you have to be able to tell stories. And that's my story about his story. And now you have to deal with our stories. I'm Stan Husted. This is Interesting Ideas. Thank you for your time. We'll be right back, and we'll close it out. Once again, and thank you. And by the way, one of the fun things I say is when people say my wife is Karen, and she says I'm the nice Karen, I say, yes, she's the nicest person in the world. Sometimes I'm not, but she certainly is. And again, that makes people smile. And the goal of all marketing is to make people smile. Remember that. Hey, I can help you. so please get in touch with me. What It Takes Radio is our present way of helping people do this. As a part of who I am and what I do, we can help you with all kinds of entrepreneurial performance coaching, either online or virtual, or if you want to pay the price in person, we'll be glad to do that in a way that you and your team, and this is what we will guarantee you. We will guarantee you that you will be pleased and that you will have a great experience, or if we don't do that, we tear up the check and say, best and blessings to you, because we always close with a benediction, no matter what. So there we go. Thank you for your 20 minutes today. I trust it's gone well for you. Again, reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. Since you're going to have to learn how to be a storyteller around the world on the radio, you might want to check out our What It Takes Radio company. It's at witradio.net, witradio.net. Again, thank you. And remember, storytelling is the only effective means of communication. So today, start telling stories. Bye for now.